Good evening and welcome to the Writer's Block. I'm your host, John Ronan, and as you know now, because we are winding down our 36th season, I talk to writers about their craft, what they're working on, what they've accomplished, what they might be planning for the future. It is at times a wider net, however. We have had on occasionally artists, sculptors, musicians. So if you have an idea for a guest who might be good for the Writer's Block, a writer or occasionally another brand of artist, watch for our address at the end of the show. We'd be very, very happy to get your suggestions. I also want to remind you again that the Writer's Block and all the other original programming that comes out of 1623 Studios is a result of cable television. You don't get that service by accessing the web by other means. So stick with cable, stick with the Writer's Block. I'm very happy to say this evening we do have a writer, a poet, a distinguished poet by the name of Catherine Strisik, and she's going to be sharing her poems and her knowledge about a new book, Goat, Goddess, Moon. Catherine, welcome to the Writer's Block.
Thank you, John.
I told you before the show I was going to start with some softball questions.
Okay.
Can you say for our audience where you were born and raised, where you went to school?
I was born in Haverhill and came to Rockport when I was 10, and so I graduated from Rockport High School. Then went on to University of Hartford in Hartford, Connecticut. With a degree in special education, with some literature and writing classes along the way, and then taught at Landmark School for a couple of years, and then started graduate school at University of North Carolina.
Oh, you've been traveling.
Yes, I made the rounds, and I was always in search of new adventures, and ended up in northern New Mexico. And I have to say that's really where I grew up. So I moved out there at 24 years old, yeah.
So you've been there, you were there for decades.
I was there for about 42 years, yes. And always came back here because my family is here in New England, yeah. So my family of origin.
you returned home.
Yes.
But not to Haverhill.
Not to Haverhill, to Rockport.
In Rockport.
Yes. I have a brother who's in Gloucester. My mother's in Rockport. My sister's in Lunenburg, and my daughter's in Woburn. So
you're back home.
I am.
Yeah,
I am.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I was curious how you found your way back to Cape Ann.
Right.
That explains it all.
That's it. Yeah.
When did you start to write Goat, Goddess, Moon?
Wow. So many, the poems of my family have always come into my writing, in free writing, stream of consciousness, early poems. So I would say from the earliest days of my writing of poetry, there was the intention of this book, but it was unknown through decades.
You didn't know it yet.
I didn't know until suddenly I had this tremendous body of work. I had gone to a writing residency in Crete, in Heraklion, back in late 2016, spent a month there, and that's when there was really a consciousness about the poetry I was writing that had to do with my ancestry and heritage.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and then a few years ago went back to Greece for 2 months, and that's where the culmination of this book really occurred.
And you mentioned being on Crete again. I don't know if I'm going to
Heraklion.
Heraklion.
Yes.
Greece is the island Crete is the island south of Greece proper, mainland Greece. Would you say a province or a district? I'm not sure the term.
It's the most southern island I think in the Mediterranean. So when you're on the south coast of Crete, on a really clear day, first of all, there's another tiny island you can take a day trip out onto, but you can see the coast of Africa. So that's how far south Crete is in the Mediterranean.
And your book refers to northernmost Greece,
where my family was.
Macedonia.
Yes.
And then in Crete, it was the farthest.
Yes.
Almost the farthest.
I know.
Not that little island.
I know, yeah.
I want to ask you also, as part of the intro here, about the cover. This is a beautiful cover, and I know it comes from a photograph at the Acropolis Museum.
Well, she's a statue, a Corée, at the Acropolis Museum in Athens, and I had seen the image, I don't know, somewhere online, and I kept thinking that's the cover of whatever book is to come. And so when I was over there, last November, I had already written to the museum, the publisher, Jim Perlman of this book with Holy Cow Press. He wrote, we got permission to use the image, and then when I was in Greece last November, I went to the museum and saw her in person. Oh, wow.
Is it a full-length statue?
She is, but she's really, about this, she's not, I expected something huge, and she's not a huge statue. And she's very protected in the museum. The colors you see on the, this image are really the colors of how the statues were made back in this time period. And they used the earth and made pigments and put them, so when we see white statues now, that's the color being wiped away.
Yeah. Yes.
So
it's a wonder. We're going to show this, the JPEG you provided.
Oh, great.
But I'm going to show it again. It's a wonderful image.
Yes.
She looks as if she's about to speak, and maybe she does.
I think she's speaking the words. We put the words right in front of her mouth.
Yeah. Goat Goddess Moon.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a fine, fine book. I want to say to the audience, as I said to you before we started recording, that when I started to read the book, I stopped for a while after the first poem, because the first poem, Seed, really defines your entire purpose, going back to your family history, and it's a very, very warm and embracing, positive poem. I was just struck by it. And I'd like if you would share that first poem with us.
Sure.
And then tell us some of the background to it.
Okay, I will. Let me bring it up. And I love reading this poem also. This, that some poems are effortless, and this was almost the last poem that I wrote for this body of work.
This is the last poem?
Just about, yes. So that's always an interesting, I struggled with a poem about the walnut tree. I can talk about that afterward if you want.
Absolutely.
Yes, but I'll read.
Your show.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll talk about it first then. So the walnut, when my grandmother and her mother left Greece, when my grandmother was a child, they left the village and ended up at Ellis Island, etc., and then Lowell, Mass. But they planted a walnut. Well, they actually planted. They planted a walnut seed, and every time my grandmother went back to Greece, which was the first time wasn't until the 50s. So, and she left there like in, what does the poem say? Like 1916 or something. The tree was growing. And so when I made my first trip to her village in 1993, the tree was tremendous. And then when I went back last year, the tree was really tremendous. And it was, anyway, it was a very moving experience for me because I was able to go onto the property and touch the tree. And
Is
is
it in private hands?
it's still in the family in kind of a indirect way now, but
It's not endangered.
no.
I thought you were going to say it was cut down.
No, oh my God, I think I would have been crying my eyes out. I was anyway, but
Yeah. You know at first anyway you'd have an emotional ESP shock from the event.
yeah. But I'll read this poem. Seed. I love this story. My great-grandmother was my great-grandmother in Amidalis. My grandmother always knelt in the chamomile with her. They loved the small golden flowers in the field. This is not a story, more the truth and a memory, a eulogy of sorts. By the time I arrived, something replenished went up to my knees, here in oregano and lemon balm, now a hint of chamomile. My great-grandmother in amygdalas. My grandmother always knelt in the chamomile with her. This is not a story, more the truth. They pressed deep into the forgiving soil, a walnut seed in the far corner of their land, then left in 1916 in February on the SS Vasiliev Konstantinos for America. If I say walnut and seed, I mean great-grandmother and grandmother, now an 80-foot walnut tree in June. It's my birthday. They embroidered onto their hems, their home's flowers, buried in the earth, buried with their hands also, some gold, shaped as a bracelet and 2 rings. My great-grandmother was my great-grandmother in amygdalas. My grandmother always knelt in the chamomile with her. If I dig with their intent, ecstatic beneath this tree, stopping only to breathe their breath as a calm catches the encrusted pale yellow of them, then please consider this. Here is the love poem with the seed, the source of what was buried and what was dug, what is nutrient, protein, starch, their oils now held by the walnut's bark. I prepare not only my lips with balm, but my spot on my earth, which I already know its embryo, the interior greenery of us. My great-grandmother died at 42 with a swollen belly. My grandmother died in a hospital of heart failure at 94. They will always be heartwood, and so I lean into the bark now and the stillness. The walnut bark, it reduces aching in the heart. In the story, later in the day there is rain. They exhale once more. I inhale, we pause of the earth briefly.
Very nicely done.
Thank you.
Very nicely. We do indeed pause briefly. That's a wonderful, strong poem. And that explains the general direction of the rest of the book. It's examining your heritage in Greece, not exclusively in Greece, but mostly in Greece. And it was a revelation for me. I'm Irish, I know.
Yeah.
The other end of Europe.
Of Europe, I know. Yeah.
You said you wrote this last.
This poem came, what I had, I was trying to write the poem about the walnut and my grandmother leaving Greece for at least a decade, and I just couldn't get there. And I don't know, as this collection started to come together, the word seed came into my head, and I thought, that's what this book is. It's the seed. it's the seed. I just, heard something that I was at a talk a few nights ago, and somebody said that 3 generations back is where the blood is the thickest. And I thought, I'm so fixated on that now. I know I'm going to eventually write about it.
Yeah.
But I thought, oh my gosh, that's my, me, my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother. So, but it's, so this poem, I'm not, there were pieces of it written, the line about my grandmother dying at 92, her mother dying at 42, the name, I had to look up the name of the ship again that they came on, so there were pieces, but how the whole thing came together was just, I always think a kind of miracle, quite honestly, when a poem works.
You said you were thinking about it, or subconsciously kind of meditating. It was growing, it was maturing during that time.
Right, sure. And I think, and I wanted a really strong piece for the introduction of this book.
You did that.
Thank you. And I had some assistance. I mean, the way I work is my poems, or sometimes a whole manuscript, is given to those poets who are my peers. We've been critiquing each other's work for, I can't even tell you, decades, some of us. Yeah. We're not easy with each other, but we do it because, we've all been writing for so long and have books out and, don't let each other get away with anything. But I gave the manuscript to George Caligeris, who's a writer. He lives in Winthrop. He was head of at Suffolk University, the creative writing program there. And we kind of came into each other's lives when I was giving a reading through Citizen Tales, which is a whole other thing we can talk about some other time. But that's when he first heard my work. So I felt really comfortable with him looking at the book when my publisher said, because the initial title was, or the working title was Labyrinth, and my publisher said, I don't think so. Yes, this is a labyrinth, but it's not the title of this book. And so when I gave the manuscript to George, he was very helpful. He said, you've got 3 sections, and you find the poems that go into each of these sections, and he's outstanding. So, and the title really came from what he was reading within the poems. He said, you have these themes, this goat keeps coming up, goddess, and the moon is popping up. So anyway, goat, goddess, moon.
I think it's an excellent title.
Yes.
Especially with the statue. I think labyrinth is a little threatening. It's like could be confusing. We could get lost in there.
Well, and it's a labyrinth is so interesting because it's circular, or it can, I had a labyrinth in my yard in Taos, and you enter and you keep circling, and it's a spiritual journey to make it in and out of there.
I'll say. Yeah.
But so the book to me is, yes, it is this journeying, but it's in circular because it keeps coming back to the source of what I come from, therefore the poem seed. I mean, yes, it's linear also, that we're, as humans moving forward with time, except within time, I truly believe is the circular, and we are always going to come back to our foundation, our seed.
I think that's really strongly evoked with the full second line. My great-grandmother was my great-grandmother in Amygdalus.
Yes.
which you repeat. And I think the refrain aspect in your poems, the repetition of lines and phrases is very powerful. It's, repetition creates importance, and often emotional importance. It does so in this.
Yeah,
very,
in
very
this
effective.
poem. I know, and it was interesting because with the way this poem began to present itself on the page, it was calling for that repetition. And initially it was to keep me engaged, but then I thought, no, this repetition is really important in this poem because we are repeating ourselves over and over as birth takes place.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. I think it's very effective, and it contributes to the emotion of that. I was quite moved by that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
And it did. It just what you wanted. It starts the book with a bang. I want to ask you about form for a minute, to talk about technical aspects. You often are very careful about spacing and moving physically, visually, lines around and words around.
Using the space.
Using the space, yes. And then at times you have blocked poems that appear to be prose poems, but they're not quite prose poems. They're more compact. I don't know how to describe it.
It's an interesting thing. To talk about a line in a sentence in poetry and what the difference is. A line in poetry very much brings attention to itself because there's enjambment. You break the line in a very particular way because you want to bring attention to something. There's a kind of musicality in a line, and a sentence is more, a complete thought.
Yes.
So when I'm thinking of the poem that has the girl dancing on the edge of Fortezza,
Yes.
which is, I think, in the middle section of the book. I've used the space on the page because she's dancing, and she's on truly dancing on the edge of Fortezza, overlooking the entire city of Heraklion and the sea. So the poem is spaced purposely that way because of the motion of the dance. Whereas, say, in the block poem that you mentioned, and I have a few of them in here,
yes.
There's just something more that the poems that went into more of those forms, they weren't calling for a certain kind of lineation. It was almost just one long breath in them.
So that's what you want after with some of the poems that are blocked off like that. Do you want that read sort of breathlessly as one?
Yeah.
I think yeah.
Is that the poem Vain? Is that what you?
It is.
Oh,
It is
see, I love that. That's my grandfather's story. So, yeah.
Yes, Vain's one of your. I think that's mentioned in the notes as well. I didn't quite understand how the parentheses function in that poem.
To distinguish between then a time period lapse is what the parenthesis is for. So let me just bring up the poem myself. Yeah. It just has to do with, well, it is kind of a breath in that if he left by foot. So there's this pause. Did he leave by foot or donkey or cart and donkey or cart and horse? And then it's, let's see, in Central Macedonia, so it's almost like where there's this question and also a moment of the time changing. So the time is changing a little bit when I put the parenthesis. Yeah.
So they're used a bit like ellipses.
Right.
I think I love to talk to poets about these technical questions, because that's the kind of thing you have to really focus on when you're writing. People say, "Oh, that's just dreamy. I loved it." But we're deciding line length and rhythm and diction choices. And, I think Vane, because it involves your grandfather, is a great grandfather.
This is grandfather.
Grandfather
Yeah.
is really really effective. I have a couple other poems marked, but I want to ask you first if you have any poems you'd like to make a point of reading.
No, I'm open to whatever you were struck by that you would like me to read.
I have a number.
You know,
Oh, geez.
Are we almost out of time?
I'm shocked. I'm really enjoying this. And I just looked at, good thing I looked up. If our show goes too long, then the people that follow my show would be mad at me.
Oh, okay. So what do we have, 10 minutes? Is that?
No, we have a
minute and 40 seconds. Oh my gosh, okay.
I'm going to have to begin to close. I'm
sorry
to say.
Okay.
Catherine Strisik, I very much enjoyed the book.
Thank you.
I very much enjoyed interviewing you. This is a wonderful book, and it's a revelation to me because of my background's from the other end of the continent, and this woke me up and opened my eyes to many things. So I want to thank you for being on the Writer's Block and sharing this with our audience.
Thanks so much.
I'm sure the sales will skyrocket.
Okay, we'll see. I hope so.
I want to thank everybody in our TV audience for being with us as well. If you've learned something about Goat Goddess Moon, the wonderful book of poetry by Catherine Strisik, then the Writer's Block has done its job tonight. Thank you for being with us, and I hope to see you again next time on the Writer's Block. Good night.